Accounting for Growth, the podcast where growth leaders in accounting go beyond referrals alone and think bigger. I'm Chad Person, your host and the founder and president of Accounting CMO. Each episode, we bring in experts at the edge of accounting innovation to share quick, actionable insights that help you lead with confidence, drive smart growth, and move your firm forward. Let's dive in. Welcome to the Accounting for Growth podcast. If you've listened to the show before, you know that we spend a lot of time talking about marketing and sales and just growth-related topics, and obviously that's intentional, but every once in a while we get the opportunity to kind of zoom out a little bit and talk about things I believe are underneath sales and marketing, kind of the operational realities that actually make growth possible. Or frankly, they can kind of quietly choke it. So today's one of those days. When I work with firms, professional services firms, they all generally have a desire to grow. The demand is there, but capacity oftentimes and the operational aspect of the firm can become the real bottleneck. And so it's not because people don't, want to put the work in, right? It's usually the opposite. Find it that when the roles are fuzzy, when processes are inconsistent, when you're trying to operate a future ready firm with outdated systems, that can be what makes I think a lot of firms lose sanity. So let me jump into it. That's why I'm excited about today's conversation. Joining me is Kathryn Crosby. She is the founder and principal at Wise Mind Ventures. Kathryn works with service-based businesses that frankly have outgrown their internal system. She helps leaders bring, kind of structure to their people, their process, operations in general. So welcome, Kathryn.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Chad. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, excited to have you. So Kathryn, for those who aren't familiar with your work, give us kind of the quick overview, who you help, what are the first signs that you see when a firm has outgrown its internal systems, et cetera.
Sure. Yeah. So, as you said, I work primarily with professional services firms and consulting companies um, whose internal systems haven't really caught up with their actual growth
Mm,
or their ideal growth. And so, what shows up first often is friction and overwhelm. So, leaders are stretched thin. Decisions often funnel either through that one leader or maybe a couple of partners.
mm,
And folks are working really hard, but things feel heavier and more chaotic than they should.
yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I know in reviewing, just kind of working through your website and been on your LinkedIn profile, I know you often refer to calming the chaos. So break that down a little bit for me in terms of like what does that actually look like in a professional services firm?
Yeah. So when I talk about calming the chaos, what I'm really talking about is clarity and systems working together. So
Mm,
clear roles and ownership and systems that make the right way actually the easy way.
mm,
So capacity is created through clarity and systems, not necessarily
mm.
more ongoing man hours and effort. It's clarity and systems.
Yeah, no, it's huge, huge. So um let's focus more on because I know there's multiple aspects. There's the systems, but there's also people side. But let's bear down on capacity. I mean, I know you're familiar with this real attribute inside of the accounting profession in particular, and other spaces as well, but where firms want to grow, but that capacity, right, is a real issue for them to be able to plan for growth. So some of the most common like capacity drains you see in firms and warning signs, et cetera? You've mentioned a couple, but break that down more for me.
Yeah, so what I see is a lot of excessive administrative and people management load on leaders.
Mm,
So founders and partners are operating functionally as all of the things
sure.
by default, and then just also because there are lack of systems. So they become the project manager, the people manager, the admin manager, all the things.
Mm,
So the biggest capacity drains are usually unglamorous, but very taxing and obviously by definition time consuming. So I see leaders doing work that they should have delegated or automated long ago, processes that live in people's heads, and teams really reinventing the wheel every time they turn around.
yeah. Yeah, and I mean, and you know, again want to get to the people side of this because there's, I guess, certainly a leadership component, but there's a real impact. I mean, you've kind of mentioned, some of the signs, but there are serious pains associated with this, and the impact I think often is on people, both your people, right? The folks inside of the firm who are having to kind of day in and day out work through this mess, and then it's also has an impact on clients probably, unfortunately, as well, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's that's a great way to phrase it. I mean, what happens in especially in the case of a small team as opposed to like a solopreneur,
Yeah.
projects and work just stalls if a leader is suddenly unavailable or even briefly unavailable. And kind of it's the classic case that I see of a founder never truly taking vacation because every decision and every single action needs to, at the very least, be run by them,
Yeah.
and in the worst cases, be completed by them. And so, um,
Yeah.
what we see is that that's actually a blocker for growth. Is
Yeah.
they need to get out of their own way, essentially.
Sure. And look, I mean, I think, I I talk to many firm leaders that see this. They can put their finger on the fact that they're oftentimes the one that is the bottleneck, right? They just don't know how to fix it, and that's the beauty of having you on board is you know how to fix it. So so taking a step back, I also know that one of the uh, talk about ROI and making investments in your firm towards growth in a future ready way. This is for me front and center, and because it's about you actually help firms create or build capacity without hiring people, right? And talk to me about that.
Yeah, yeah. So, a common thing that I see, as I just said, is founders spending time
Yep.
kind of in the weeds where they don't need to be. And so it's really just about creating systems and actually automating a lot of the things where it's possible. And
Mm,
so rather than doing routine work or reinventing the wheel, as I said, every single time,
sure.
they end up, they're kind of two pieces to the puzzle. I like to say there's the automation that can handle the like routine repeatable work, and
Yep.
then there's the trust piece that you have to unlock, delegation. And without both, founders can stay really busy, um, but and stuck, not growing.
Right. Right. Makes sense. And so are you so you can come in obviously and help them automate, streamline, automate, improve current processes, almost kind of bring them up to current what needs to be to meet current state growth needs. So do you um do you both look at opportunities to optimize their processes or automate their processes inside their current platforms? And do you also look for ways to build new processes outside of their current platforms when it makes that make little
Yeah,
sense?
yeah. I mean, I think when it makes sense, absolutely.
Yeah,
And of course, like depending on founder and partner comfort level,
sure.
always like to start with what they have and
Yep.
what's existing. And some places are starting with not much of a process at all, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
really, start where they are and build upon that.
And to that degree, again, for an operations leader, a managing partner, growth leader in a firm listening, is there kind of an audit, so to speak, to put it in the accounting profession, an audit of what you do when you typically come in to kind of help assess their current state and where and what they need to move forward?
Yeah, so I always start with the diagnosis or assessment piece
Gotcha.
before we even consider hiring or a people problem, if you will.
Sure.
It's many firms assume that the obvious and immediate answer is hiring or adding people,
Right.
but the work itself isn't optimized or organized yet. And so
Yeah.
even if the eventual solution is a little bit more headcount, you can bring them on then with a system in place and they're actually become much more functional and operational because you
Mm.
have the system in place. So we like to look at where chaos is costing time, where it's creating rework, and really pulling people into the weeds where they don't need to be.
Yeah, no, makes sense. Makes sense. The assessment is I think a huge part of the value, right? Right up front, for sure. So let's make that shift to we've talked about obviously systems and efficient processes, et cetera, how you potentially diagnose those. But you've also mentioned a number of times, attributes of this problem that are really people focused or people related. I mean, I've kind of name dropped some of these things around role clarity and obviously leaders not doing the delegation they need to. But there's also I think something to be said for what are you doing as a firm to really drive performance, better performance of middle managers and ensuring that they have what they need, right, to kind of step up and take over. So let's talk about the people side of this and how you work with firms to drive better performance there.
Yeah. So, the biggest thing, in my opinion, that leaders can do is to A, stop being the automatic decision maker and
Yeah.
problem solver for literally everything.
Yeah.
And B, remember, if you hired a team, you did it for a reason. You need to exhibit that trust and show them that you trust them.
Yeah.
Leaders step into the weeds mostly with good intentions, and they're just trying to be helpful and keep things moving. But what they're actually doing, like we've said, is created a bit of a bottleneck. So instead, they need to show their leaders that they trust them
Mm,
and allow them to make those decisions, because delegation isn't just about handing off tasks, right? It's about
right.
handing over ownership.
Right.
So all of those pieces. And so, and when you show confidence in your team, that builds their confidence, which makes them a better leader to begin with.
Yeah, it makes total sense. And so you, in addition to obviously driving better processes and systems, which has a net positive impact on, frankly, everyone, clients included. You also, though, you provide coaching support to leaders to so that they can kind of, as you suggested, kind of connect confidence in their teams and drive just better operations. Is that you coach?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So,
Yeah,
it starts with the founder or partners, right? And helping them to understand, as I said, the trust and the confidence piece. But then I work with aspiring and mid-level managers in particular to
okay,
build that confidence and build the skill set that's required to understand, what ownership truly means, and going from being a task doer to a
sure.
task owner.
Yeah, and so many of those middle managers that, are often for the first time becoming responsible for leading a team too, right? So they're not only having to become, owners of that, you know, executing that task or whatever. They're also having starting to lead others, right, as well. So,
Right. Yeah, that's
huge.
a whole new skill set. That's a whole new
Yeah,
skill set.
yeah,
So, we work with people to understand the dynamics of what that means.
sure. No, makes sense. Yeah. So let's close in here on kind of how a marketing leader, excuse me, a managing partner or a growth leader inside of a firm could kind of take that first step. Like what if so many of the folks I talk to again don't even realize this is one of the underlying problems related to achieving sustainable growth. So, you know, what do you do if you feel stuck and you're kind of wondering if this operational piece, this leadership piece even is potentially the issue?
Yeah, the first thing that I like to suggest, even for solopreneurs, but
Mm,
for team leaders as well, is to start with a check-in, daily or weekly. If you want to start with weekly, that's okay. And check in with yourself if it's just you, or check in with your team and identify the blockers and what you need to prioritize. So think about, you know, what took the most administrative time this week and why, and are there ways that you can bring in someone like me to go ahead and optimize and change just the way that the processes and procedures are going,
sure.
so that you can get to a better place.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense. And so do you offer kind of a simple way for a leader to kind of self-assess where their gaps are today?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked. On my website, wisemindventures.com, I have free business health assessment that folks can hop on and
Right.
do, and that really helps me to help them then in a follow up
Sure.
conversation to understand where their blockers are and how we can eventually optimize and automate.
That's awesome. Yeah. So great topics. Anything as we kind of close in here, Kathryn? Any kind of closing thoughts for listeners?
I guess the biggest thing that I would say is folks just need to kind of zoom out in order to zoom in,
Sure.
right? So take a
Sure.
look at their leaderships, and if they're able to trust and then delegate to their team,
Sure.
and if they don't have a team, they really need to start with what are the things that are taking me directly into the weeds, and how can I move out?
Yeah. Yeah, and obviously, it's so difficult, I find, to kind of step outside of your day in and day out reality, and so from my perspective, having your perspective from the outside and someone who sees these issues every day and various firms, such a huge bonus to have in their corner. So, hey, this has been great conversation, Kathryn. Really appreciate it. My closing thoughts would be, hey, yeah, if there's one thing that I hope people take away from our conversation is, growth. If growth's the goal, right? Capacity is often the constraint, and capacity, again, as we've talked about today, isn't just about hiring 4 or 5 more people. You've obviously indicated, Kathryn, that at the end of the day, capacity is created through clarity. It's systems. It's this leadership piece that you talked about. So for anyone who's listening, it feels like growth is kind of harder than it needs to be, and those are the most of the people that I seem to communicate with, or that their team is constantly busy, but feel the progress is slow. Yeah, I think there's a lot of value here for you. If you want to learn more about Kathryn and the work that she does, I know you stated it earlier, Kathryn, but you can find her at wisemindventures.com, wisemindventures.com. I think that's the best place to explore her approach and reach out to her directly. I think that assessment is there as well. Kathryn, thanks so much for joining me today.
Excellent. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. Everyone else, thank you for listening as always. And until next time, keep accounting for growth. That's a wrap on this episode of Accounting for Growth, powered by your CMO. We help accounting leaders break the status quo. Please subscribe, share, and stay sharp. Your next big growth move starts now.